Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program in which we speak about the situation of the suffering and persecuted church around the world. In 2017, an ISIS-linked militant group laid siege to the city of Marawi, the largest Muslim city on the second biggest island in the Philippines. Determined to turn Marawi into a Southeast Asian province of an ISIS caliphate, for 4 months and 24 days the jihadists murdered Christians and took Christian and Muslims hostage alike. President Duterte, with US air support, defeated the jihadists, killing their leadership. The toll, however, was great. More than 1,100 people died in the violence, and the city structures, including the Catholic Cathedral of Mary Help of Christians, were reduced to rubble. Today, Marawi is still under martial law, heavily patrolled by the Philippine military. Buildings in and around Ground Zero, or as it is locally known, the MAA, or Most Affected Area, are still only shells. To tell us more about the situation today, it is my great privilege to welcome His Excellency Bishop Edwin de la Peña, responsible for the Marawi Prelature in Marawi City. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us here today in our program.
Hey Mark, it's my pleasure to be here with you.
Your Excellency, I'd like to get into the question of Marawi, but before we do, I'd like just to give us a little bit of a picture. We're going to watch a short video about the Philippines and in particular the attacks on the Catholic Church in Marawi on that fateful day.
The Philippines is an extensive archipelago of over 7,100 tropical islands, which harbour a diverse array of wildlife, idyllic beaches, and an almost endless list of unique landscapes. Often backed by typhoons and other natural disasters, the Filipino people captivate the visitor with their unwavering optimism and vibrant Christian culture. The Republic of the Philippines is located in Southeast Asia, with China and Taiwan to the north and Vietnam to the east. Despite being known for its beaches, much of the country is mountainous and prone to earthquakes and eruptions from around 20 active volcanoes. The fast-growing population of an estimated 100 million people mainly inhabits large cities like Manila and Davao. The Philippines also claim a large diaspora of over 12 million people who send regular and vast remittances to their loved ones back home. The Philippine economy ranks as one of the region's best performers. Services and manufacturing have gradually taken over from the once dominant agricultural sector. The rich Philippine biodiversity offers beaches, mountains, rainforests, islands and diving spots, not to mention the country's significant historical and cultural heritage. Despite the positive economic growth, 26% of the population still lives below the poverty line. Unemployment remains high, and underdevelopment in rural areas has left most Filipinos behind. These negative facts are further exacerbated by natural disasters which pummel the archipelago every year. The pre-colonial societies of the Philippines had substantial trade and other contacts with India, China, Japan, and other developing nations in Southeast Asia. By the 1300s, Islam took root on the islands of Sulu, Mindanao, and eventually spread northwards to Luzon. The Philippines were subsequently colonized by the Spanish, receiving their name from the then King Philip II. The archipelago was then ceded to the United States in 1898 and only achieved independence in 1946 after World War II, when it became the Republic of the Philippines. The post-war years are unfortunately best known for the notorious regime of President Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda. His 21-year rule was characterized by political repression, censorship, embezzlement of billions of public funds, and human rights violations. Today, the Philippines have a stable democratic government, a constitutional republic with a president as head of state. Challenges still remain in certain regions, notably on the island of Mindanao, home to almost 5 million Filipino Muslims who seek regional autonomy. After a 40-year insurgency, the government signed a peace deal with the Muslim rebels, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front of Mindanao, in March 2014, thus ending the violence, which has cost an estimated 120,000 lives.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our program Where God Weeps, where we're talking with His Excellency Bishop Edwin de la Peña, the Bishop of the Marawi Prelature and Marawi City. Your Excellency, thank you for being with us here today again. I'd like to now ask you the situation in Marawi City. How would you describe it? It's in a city in ruins. How would you describe, let's say, the physical structure, but also the human structure?
Marawi is still in ruins, at least for the most affected area. Nothing much has been done to rebuild the city. Perhaps there is work being done in trying to widen the roads, and along the banks of the river Agus that flows down from Marawi all the way down to Iligan, some structures are built to ensure that those who were living there before will no longer go back and occupy that place. So some kind of cleaning up is being done. But apart from that, nothing much has been done.
Nothing has moved.
Nothing.
Now, Marawi City used to be a beautiful city. If I understand, it's sat on Marawi on the lake.
Yes.
And was a beautiful place. Also, it was a city of cohabitation between Muslims and Christians. How would you describe, first of all, how was it, this living together previous, and how is it today?
Well, the situation about the relationship between Christians and Muslims this past 17 years, in fact, had been very harmonious. This was the fruit of the efforts of the previous bishop, the first bishop of Marawi, Bishop Benvenido Tutud, when he conceptualized a kind of a church that is open, that is friendly, that offers the hand of reconciliation through dialogue of life and faith. So interfaith dialogue was our entry to the Muslim community. And they responded positively, although it wasn't immediate. It took about 25 years, really, for them to respond. After 9/11, they realized that they needed to respond to the Christians' overture for peace.
So they saw the necessity of
Yes.
living together.
Yes, yes. So that was the start of what I could consider the golden age of Muslim-Christian relations.
Now, from what I've read and what I've understood, during the attack and even afterwards, Muslims protected Christians and
Yes,
Christians
yes.
protected Muslims. And I think this is a very important message. Can you tell us about that?
This is part of the development that we have gone through in terms of improving our relationship with the Muslim brothers and sisters now. That they were willing and ready to protect Christians. The story of the war can be told along that line of people helping one another, also helping one another in trying to defeat the radical extremists in our communities. And on the part of the Christians too, when the Muslims migrate, the displaced residents of Marawi went down to Iligan, they were welcomed by our Christian communities in Iligan, and they were offered a space for them to start their own life away from the disturbance in Marawi.
You are able to travel freely within Marawi, or is the city also closed to yourself?
It's closed
Absolutely
to everybody.
closed to everybody. So it's only
yeah.
under military still today.
Yes, and
How are you able to do your pastoral ministry?
we have our chaplaincy at Mindanao State University. We have a small Christian community in the tent city. We call it the tent city, on the periphery of the military camp.
Where many of these IDPs would be located.
Yes. The people living in this area are mainly Christians. But the one who looks after the pastoral care of the university also extends his help to the Christian community in that area. In fact, myself, I've said Mass there several times. It pains me so much to see my people living under such condition, because it is very hot, especially with the kind of climate that we have in the Philippines.
It's very humid.
It's
no?
very humid. And when it rains, it really pours, and everything is wet. And so we made arrangement with the military, because they're using our land to build a new military camp. So there is already a military camp on one end of the city. The other end of the city, they also want to make another military camp, and they have expropriated our property together with all the other property owners in that area. So I said, we are not interested in getting paid for the use of of that land. Just give us an equivalent place somewhere, so that we can start our own housing project for our Christian minority, because for all intents and purposes, they don't seem to have a space in the way they want Marawi to be reconstructed. There is no place for Christians. So that's our challenge now.
I understand. And now, are you also in your pastoral work in contact with the Muslim community, also these IDPs? And what is the response to you? Is there animosity? Or how deeply has the wounds affected your relationship with the Muslim community?
With the Christian residents of Marawi, we don't have problems with the community at large, the Muslim community.
Right.
Probably because, or surely because, we experienced displacement together. And we were victims here. Both of us were victims. Although, since we are a minority, the Muslims really suffered the most.
Yes.
Suffered more than we did.
Is there also from the side of the Muslims a rejection of this fundamentalism? They
Yes,
say
yes,
it doesn't
yes.
belong here.
They would always say, that's not the way we live Islam. That's not the way we embraced Islam. No. So it's something foreign, something alien to them.
You have launched an initiative, I will just want to get the name right here, it's called Duyog
Duyog
Marawi.
Marawi.
What is Duyog Marawi? What is the intent of Duyog Marawi?
Duyog Marawi is really a program that we crafted together with the Redemptorist missionaries, church-based, faith-based organizations, including ACN, yes, ACN Philippines, and well, ACN International. Yeah. Our effort is to respond to the crisis initially through relief and then rehabilitation. And our strategy is always interfaith and peace building. So we go into the work of rehabilitation through in our effort to build a peace with the communities, and also to respond to not only to their day-to-day needs, but also to the for them to be able to build up their livelihood and to build a community, as it were, including the needs of the children, the needs of the women, the needs of health for the community, so forth and so on. So it's something that is integrated.
And it's working.
And it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
And our Muslim partners are still with us after all these years. No, 2 years, more than 2 years now. They have been working with us, and they want to continue working with us. And so this is a group that has been so energized, to continue working.
Your Excellency, the government at the end, President Duterte said ISIS has been defeated and the leadership has been killed. Have they really, or have they just gone underground? I make reference because in January of 2019, there was the bombing of the church of the cathedral in Jolo, and they claimed responsibility for this. So my question is, are they still on the islands? And how do you manage this question with the remainders of ISIS?
We hear stories about recruitments being undergone. Recruitment of caterers being undertaken in the countryside. Of course, when we hear stories like this, we feel alarmed. We kind of we have not even started the work of reconstruction, and now how can we reconstruct with this kind of situation, which is very volatile? And but I think we trust rather the genius of the people. They have learned their lessons. That at one point they would probably take the money that is being offered, but they are not sold out to giving their sons to the cause that is very suspicious in nature.
And in some ways foreign to them.
Some ways foreign. So I think they will have a hard time really sowing the seed of rebellion. But if the government is not sensitive enough to respond sooner to the situation of the people now, especially the situation of the people who had been displaced, I think this will become a very tempting invitation for extremism to thrive.
Now, as we know, before the attacks in Marawi and this, Mindanao had been under for decades, 40 years of civil war, with about 120,000 who had lost their lives. It's been a center, if you will, of frustration, for particularly the Muslim community, which is underdeveloped. Then on top of that layer, you have the attacks now. And what is the government trying to do? There is a proposal, I want to get the name correct, it's called the Bangsamoro proposal, the Bangsamoro project. What is this project and proposal on the table by the government to try and heal these 4 decades of insurgency and violence, and secondly now capped of course by the Marawi situation? What is the project, the framework?
This is the fruit of the long process of peace negotiations between the government and the rebel forces. And there were negotiations before that led to the establishment of originally what was autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao. But then that kind of framework and the autonomy that was offered didn't really give enough support in terms of financial support.
Economic development,
and so forth and so on. They were always looking up to Manila for everything that they needed. They didn't have enough authority to govern themselves, no? And so this Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, which was the product of the negotiations between the Philippine government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, has been considered as the last chance for us to be able to build a peace. Because now the autonomous region is really given so much power for them to be able to bring development to the region, and also for the Muslims to really begin to govern themselves.
To be responsible for their own situation.
Yes. When we had this kind of plebiscite to ratify the law that was enacted by Congress, the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the Christians, together with the Christians within that autonomous region, were one in saying that we will support this Bangsamoro Organic Law, so that it would be ratified, and then. This will bring about the true development for Mindanao.
True development and as a consequence, peace.
Yes, yes.
Your Excellency, at the time of the attacks, you said, and I quote, "This is a critical moment in the history of Muslim and Christian relations in Marawi. This will either bring us closer or will widen the gap." We are 2 years later.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on your own quote?
I think we have closed the gap. And there has been so much development. There has been so much hope, so much positive development in terms of the relationships between Christians and Muslims now. And we continue with the work that we are doing. And even smaller groupings of Muslims and Christians that had been replicated in different parishes. We are having this active engagement with one another. Now we are beginning to realize that we really need to come together for us to be able to bring peace to our land and to defeat ISIS, the violent extremism, that kind of ideology that is foreign to the life of Muslims and Christians
in the Philippines.
In the Philippines.
So you have hope.
We have hope. We are very positive that we will be able to continue fighting for peace, and this is also something that the world needs to see, that it is possible for Christians and Muslims to build a peace in spite of what happened in our life, in our decade now.
How can we help, Your Excellency? What is it that we who are with you now today on our program can do for you?
It's not so much for us, for the Christians, that we are asking for help. It is more of helping our Muslim brothers and sisters really rise from this difficult situation. Although I would say that we also need help for our small Christian community, because we plan to put up housing project for them. If we are not able to find the land in Marawi, we'll probably find it somewhere closer to Marawi. We are very determined to start it.
And to support the Christian community.
Yes, to support the Christian community. Because without them, there is no church.
There's no church.
There's no church.
Is the faith growing in Marawi at 3% of the total population? Is the faith growing?
I think so. Although at the moment, there is no Christian community to speak of, except the small community at tent city, no? But as you can see, most of our parishioners are in diaspora. They're everywhere, no? They're trying to get away from the danger zone, no? But eventually they would come back.
They will come back.
They will come back.
That's what we pray for.
They will come back.
Your Excellency, thank you for having been with us today in our program.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today in our program, Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the situation in Marawi, or perhaps how you might be able to help, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.